A very warm welcome, good evening, and today, Wednesday, the 1st of February 2023, and today I want to welcome you yet again to another discussion, another edition of Behind the Headlines. The headline, behind the headlines today, we are going to be looking at a question or a topic that many people fear to indulge in, and I think rightly so, given the African context, given the Ugandan context, given our national laws that forbid certain practices, and we are going to be looking at all those. Today we are discussing the question of the LGBTQ. LGBTQ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and queer means strange or odd, and we will be looking at all those terminologies, if you like, and asking ourselves, is it the right thing? Is it really something to debate? How big is the problem? And to discuss all this, I'm joined by the Honorable Minister of State for ICT and National Guidance, Honorable Geoffrey Kabyanga. He is here with us. Honorable, you're most welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Charles Odonto.
Thank you very much. Next to Honorable Kabyanga is Reverend Canon Awodi John. He is the Secretary for Kampala Diocese, right?
Yes, please.
In the Church of Uganda. You're most welcome, Reverend.
Thank you, Brother Charles.
And good to have you here. I think your maiden appearance on this show, isn't it?
Yes, please.
Good. It's good to have you. Next to Reverend is Honorable Ojara Martin Mapenduzi. He is MP for Bardegela Yibi in Gulu City. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Daddy Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good. Finally, we have Council Sarah Birete, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance, an NGO that discusses matters constitutional, matters legal, and matters rule of law. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good. As we were coming into the show, someone was asking me, how are we going to discuss this topic? How are we going to even start it, given our Ugandan context? And my question, for me, the simple thing I said was that I'm going to start with the Honorable Minister, because we need to find out, how big is this problem? Is it a problem? This, was it last week? I saw a screaming headline from the Ministry of Education, that the Minister of Education has directed an investigation into the practice of homosexuality or accusations of it in one of the schools. Specifically, reference was made to, I think, Budo,
King's College.
It was King's College Budo. And then just following that, I think the day or two later or before, there was the screaming headline, and on social media especially, discussions around Vienna College, and then there have been discussions around other schools, Kisubi, I think, SMAC, or with many other schools. Today, or yesterday, I think today, there was a meeting of teachers, and they were planning and discussing how to start the new term, which is beginning next week on Monday. And the biggest discussion was on this problem, that there is a challenge that we are going to have to deal with, this whole thing about homosexuality or gay practices in some of our schools. I must say, in some of the schools. And so I think it is only fair to ask the question from government, how big is this problem? Is it a problem, or is it just a drop of water in an ocean, but because the media focuses on it And now with social media, it looks like a big issue. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Charles Odomto, and good evening, viewers. First of all, I don't know why Odomto chose me. I've not been coming here for quite a long time, but when he saw this question, that's when he called me in the hot seat.
That means we trust in your capacity.
Charles Odomto, our country, Uganda, when you look at our motto, is for God and my country. And when you read our anthem, sometimes we sing without noticing the words. One time, I think it is You This Again. It moved around and told people to sing. And everybody sang
Their own
words.
Versions.
But you know,
Some people say our anthem
exactly.
is a prayer.
It's a prayer.
It
Yes.
Because
And the song, you know,
O Uganda,
Yes.
may God uphold
hold thee.
thee. And you know, we lay all our
Future.
future in
In
their
your
hands. So our country, by nature, by setting, it is a religious country, because we have laid our future in the hands of God. And God, I will leave that to the Reverend, has his commandments. And he tells us what is right and what is
Is wrong.
And therefore, that alone makes anything that is against the teachings of God a sin. And there is no bigger and smaller what? Sin. A sin becomes a what? A sin. And therefore, when you ask the question, is it a big issue? The fact that it has emerged, it is a big issue, because it is a sin against what? God. And homosexuality, or whatever it is, it's not new. Because when you look at history, what I've read, it was introduced here by the Arab slave traders. So it dates back to the times during slave trade. And therefore, it has been with us. That's why even the first law was enacted in, I think, 1950, for it to be introduced in the Penal Code Act. And obviously, it has been amended. It has been amended several times. But the first law was actually punishing a man who sleeps with a man. I don't know why, whether women had not yet gone into it, but later on, the Penal Code Act was amended to even include women. So it's not a new thing. But now I think it's gaining ground. And one of the reasons why it's gaining ground, I think one of it is technology. Now the world is one global village, and then some bit of moral degeneration among the population, not necessarily about issues of homosexuality, but other issues. Because here we have been discussing corruption. It is also moral degeneration. So homosexuality is also among some of those things where our morals have really gone down, and therefore now it can be talked about openly, and we are not going to shy away about it. But also, I think the Western world, for them, they gave up. Most of the population gave up on religion a long time ago. If you look at the churches in the Western world, probably Canon will expound on that. They are losing membership. Even churches are closing.
True.
If you go there, you will only meet old people and not young people, because people now think even God doesn't exist, and they can therefore do anything they so wish to do. One time I was in a city called Santa Cruz in California. When I was still a mayor, we had some relationship partnership with them, and they organized a dinner for me. And when they told me to lead the people to go and serve, I first prayed for the food. I pray for the food innocently, because me, I pray before I eat. And people looked at me, and then later an old woman asked for my business card, but he just wanted my email address. So after we had eaten, we had enjoyed ourselves, I retreated to my hotel, and she sent me a message. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The thank you very much were for. And he said, may God bless you. And then I said, why? I said, it's my pleasure. But I don't know why the compliments. Said, you broke the tradition and prayed for the food. I know some of the people felt shy. They would have even left without eating that that food. So I started imagining that society has gone to that level, that if you pray or if you talk anything about religion, people would even refuse to join you for the meal. So that's how far the world has gone. So here, even people now are copying some of those things because of technology, one thing, and then movement has become easy. We can now move from one place to another within minutes. You come from Uganda right now. You can hear, say tomorrow at midday, you see me in the US, and that one, as we move, we copy so many things, some of which may not be necessary for us to copy. So it's a big issue which we should not ignore. It might be so small in the eyes of some people, but if we leave it to continue, it may become a big issue. And for us as Ugandans, I think we'll put our message very clear, that majority of Ugandans don't support that. And our laws are also very clear. It's punishable. Even recently, you should know, 2014, there was a bill which was introduced, but it collapsed because of procedural issues, technical issues. That's why it collapsed. But it was supported overwhelmingly, which implies we still believe in those values. Even our culture itself, leave alone religion, the Western religion, Christianity, Islam, and whatever. Even our culture itself, a man to be respected as a man must marry a woman, and sometimes must produce children, because you have seen how some men or women who don't produce children, sometimes they are mistreated by society, because everybody feels that a man should marry or a woman should marry and they should produce what? Children. It's just by bad luck that you don't produce any what? Children. And this is a God-given right. I mean, God created man to co-create, and most of the animals, except human beings, they actually play sex for reproduction. Most of them, and I don't think there is any animal which a male animal which can produce on a male animal. It's only human beings who play sex for pleasure, but the rest, most of the animals play sex to reproduce. And this was God given. It is something that God created with a purpose. But now, when people start thinking you can marry a man, when you're a man, you can marry a woman, I think we are really going against our creation, those who believe in God. But those who don't believe in God, they may think otherwise. So it's not something we should see emerging and then we just keep quiet. This time, let us look at it as something which is coming up, and if we don't believe in it, and indeed our country doesn't believe in it, we should start fighting it as fast as possible. Okay. So the issue of whether it is big or small, no, it is a bad habit that is coming up and which we must stop as early as possible. I know human rights activists will come up, but even the Constitution is very clear about fundamental human rights. And for us, when they talk about discrimination or not, they don't talk about issues of sex. Because even when you go anywhere, they will ask whether you are married, and you will say yes. They don't ask whether you are married to a man or what, or woman, because somehow they think when you are married, you must be married to a what? To an opposite sex, and not the same what? The same sex. Okay. Now, another issue, or doctor, as I wind up, I don't know. I think the COVID-19 also brought in a bit of problem.
A lot of problems.
Redundancy. Children were at home, and obviously these people who promote that vice have money, good money, and some of us have evidence. They have good money. So I think during COVID, they found enough time to indoctrinate mainly the young people, and now when they went back to school, they were equipped with a lot of information. A friend of mine was telling me recently at a certain school which I will not mention, you know, these matrons, they check students bags, whatever, for phones and the like. They found a young boy keeping 5 million in his case, and they asked, who gave it to you? He said, my father, it's my pocket money. They called the father. First said, no, I gave this guy 100,000. So when they interrogated him, they found a certain person had given him the what? The money. And he told them what that person had told him to do. So it is a big problem in schools. And therefore we shouldn't keep quiet about it. Let us start fighting it early enough. As a country whose motto is for God and my country, whose anthem is handing our future to God, we should not go against God.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. That's rather graphic, and especially the example you give of the person in school. We will be touching on all that. But first, Reverend John, from your perspective, as a church, you deal a lot with different communities, especially the young people in the church, and meeting some of their leaders. How big is this problem? What is the magnitude from your own perspective?
Thank you, Charles. On the side of the church, I must say that as our brother Honorable Geoffrey has stated, the problem is there, and it is sin, and we cannot hide it. We cannot sit down on it. We cannot sleep on it. And that's why, to that effect, since 1998, the Church of Uganda came out strongly to say we are not supporting anything to do with issues of same-sex relations or anything to do with LGBTQ, whatever it is. That is how the stand of the church came to be. And from that time up to this very day, that is what the church has stood for, to the extent that actually even last year when there was a Lambeth conference, the Church of Uganda, with bishops, did not attend the Lambeth conference because of the same issue. It had grown bigger within the traditional church setting, and so they needed to make a statement that they are not accepting it. And on the side of the young people, definitely what we are doing as the church is to acknowledge that that problem is there, and that's why when any hint of such a thing appears, we want to make sure that we address it squarely. But the other thing that we are doing is to actually teach the correct understanding of sexuality, when God said in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 and 27 that I will make man male and female, and he made them male and female. And in a number of instances, the Bible talks of the issue of sexuality as being either male or female, and there's nothing in between. There's nothing of saying I'm bisexual. There's nothing of saying I have this kind of character. Actually, in a number of instances in the Bible, like in Leviticus, the Bible condemns same-sex relationships strongly, and the Bible refers to it as detestable. And this is what we convey to the young people, that it is detestable, it is sin, it is punishable by God, and we need to run away from it. We don't need to accept it. But the problem is the promoters, and more so from the Western world, are using every avenue to promote it and to force it into people's throat, whether they like it or not, using so many arguments. Some of them are using scientific argument that this is how a person was born, when actually it is not so. Because when I tried to do research in 2016, I actually found that whatever scientific evidence that was being brought out was actually a skewed research, not correct research. And some of these things were being taught to people to accept that this is what is acceptable biological, when it is not. And so at the end of it all, the church still stands on that foundation that it is biblically sin. We cannot accept it, we cannot promote it. The only thing we can tell the society and all our people is this, that this is sin and it is punishable by God. That is what we need to take note of. St. Paul talks about it in Romans chapter 1, when he talked about issues to do with homosexuality. And he exquisitely stated that this is wickedness, and wickedness is sin. So we cannot say that, we are going to accept such kind of things that are being introduced through the social media, through the support to schools and so forth. And for your information, in 2016, I was working with Uganda Joint Christian Council, and we discovered that sexuality education, which had the element of promoting homosexuality, was being promoted in some of the schools. And so we had to blow the whistle to the extent that we also had to bring it to the attention of the Ministry of Education. And at the end of it all, the First Lady pronounced herself over it, and those materials that were given to these specific schools, there were over 100 schools in which this was being promoted. They had to be withdrawn. And so at the end of it all, we had to stand our ground to say no, and we still continue to say it is evil, it is sin, it is wickedness. Unfortunately, the people who are promoting it are saying, oh, this is the right thing to do, and we cannot accept it because it is against, first of all, our social fabric, but also it is against the teaching of the church.
Okay. Reverend, I wanted to come to Councillor Sarah and Honorable Mapenduzi. But someone has just sent a message that if anybody has been paid to promote LGBTQ in Uganda, in this week, he or she will be paid even before the agreed time. Why? The subject has received promotion beyond the expectations of any promoter. Negative promotion is more effective than positive promotion. And trust Ugandans to get carried off by non-issues. The question is LGBTQ the most urgent issue in Uganda today? That's what someone called Joshua is asking and saying.
I agree with Joshua. I know that there are many issues that we are faced with. One of them is poverty. Besides these evils, social evils that I can talk of, the other one is corruption. There are many issues that we are faced with. And at the end of it all, I think we need to pay equal attention to address these social evils. Because if we are going to live in a society that is going to be peaceful, that is going to be able to promote the right things, then we need to address all the social evils, including LGBTQ, including corruption, and whatever evils that we are faced with. That, to me, will be the issue.
Okay, good. Let me start with Councillor Sarah. As a lawyer,
I want to hear that.
As a constitutional expert, the Honorable Kabyanga referred to our laws and our constitution and outlawing practices against the nature of law and I mean against the order of nature. I think that's how it is crafted in our law books. How is this dilemma possibly resolved? Can we say, even when the laws are against it in Uganda, that it is criminal to practice homosexuality or get involved in promoting it, that it must still be, you know, some people who want to practice it must be allowed to practice?
Just I want to start with a disclaimer. I am a parent at King's College Budo. I am the vice chair of PTA at King's College Budo. And I know the Budo community watches this show. So like you mentioned in your introduction, that is one of the many schools that is on the spot. And it would be unfair for me not to disclose the conflict, which is a practice of lawyers, where you have a conflict of interest, you clearly mention it. And maybe, and I don't speak for the school, of course, the spokesperson of the school is the headmaster. So maybe for parents, given that schools are reopening, the headmaster did issue a statement, a new vision, because immediately what put the school in the spotlight, which came out, I think, over the weekend, the school was concerned because the contents of that were strange to the school. And they opened a general inquiry file at the Nsanji police station. It's file number 001 of 2/202, so that police can help the school establish what was going on. And I hope the people who were complaining in social media now have a right place to complain to. Having stated that, so what are we dealing with? Our Constitution and Article 31, Clause 2 prohibits same-sex marriages. The same is reflected in some sections of the Penal Code, which further criminalize it and they provide for punishments. In most divorce cases, Charles, where, and I want to explain the problem of the law, you cannot use, the law has limitations when it comes to matters of sexual orientation because of challenges of enforcement. And I want to give an example of a common example of marriage where failure to consummate a marriage for 2 years is a ground for divorce if you have just wedded. Or denial of conjugal rights is then a ground for divorce. So if court orders that you go to your marriage and they provide conjugal rights, do they have ability to enforce? Are they going to come to your bedroom and make sure they are conjugal rights? So that's the dilemma. That's the dilemma of the law. And I think it would be, the law serves a purpose, but it has limitations when it comes to the matters like we are discussing, because enforceability is difficult. When Parliament debated what was commonly known as the Bahat law, if you know some of the issues, if you've heard somebody's gay and you keep quiet, was it a sentence of 12 years? So, how do you get to know even? People are locked up wherever they are. Are you a fly on the wall? How will you get evidence? So I think I've demonstrated really that you cannot use the law so much other than it prohibit and provide the guidance to society, but the enforceability of such issues is almost impossible. Are you going to camp in on people's houses? Are you going to break into their bedrooms? How are you going to do it? To police the way people go about their private matters. But when you come to Africa in general, and the minister and the reverend did talk about the religious perspective, Africa in general is ranked as the most religious continent today, with 93% of the population being religious.
93%
of the population. Majority of this, 63% are Christians and 30% are Muslims. So it would not surprise anybody to know that Africa, or to realize that Africa is predominantly conservative, with the religious heaviness that is evidenced in statistics. But we also have the existential and moral commitment culturally by way of our society. So we have standards of how we are expected to live, community obligations. The minister did talk about the moral commitment, children, family, and reverend. And so this is part of the contradictions in the value systems in Africa. And with technology, both in terms of information and science, I remember the common question that President Mugabe would ask and say, can you produce children? We normally get to that joke on social media. This statement of children was relevant in the 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s to some extent. Today you are looking at advancement in medicine of surrogate mothers, of freezing eggs, of freezing sperms. And we are competing in that digital era. There is science. I can go and store my eggs, and they can be stored for 40 years and more. Somebody can go and store their sperms, and you can use technology to produce. Recently, I saw a video of the baby, the test tube baby that has now become real. They're producing a baby in a lab with no human being physically present. So this is what we are competing with. Away from advancement in medicine and innovations, you have the demystified information through technology. The children we are talking about have smartphones. Even children who were protected from smartphones during COVID and lockdown, we had to go into e-learning. So you either had to provide a laptop, you either had to provide a smartphone to make sure your child's brain keeps in the learning environment, in the learning mood. So we have these gadgets with young people. At times you wonder whether their brain capacity has ability to discern from what is good and what is bad, what they should consume, and according to who. So to me, this is the crisis we are dealing with today. Whether the position of us here on the panel is A, how do you stop BC that has come in through technology, TikTok? How do you, many children are on TikTok. Even our government, I don't know what capacity they have. China limits, I think. China limits at times information that comes in and is consumed by the population. But here I don't see that. So I think this is the debate we need to have. And maybe as I conclude, the minister did say that homosexuality came with the Arabs during slave trade. But anthropologists have suggested that homosexuality in Africa existed long before even the coming of slave trade and colonialism. So we have this anthropological evidence which is backed by local names in our indigenous languages. You have words like Ebsiaga, you have words in the western part of Uganda, we have Tingwa. So did these words come with Arabs? How did they come? So I think for me, this is, and it needs a very sober and well thought out approach. And maybe as I conclude, Charles, the family values. Many people think that the Western world has weak family values. And we forget that it's us who have vulnerable value systems that are easy to disrupt. And I will use an example of last Christmas when weather disrupted flights. If you saw the way the people in the United States were moving, say even the weather is bad, it's a family tradition to have Christmas. It's our family tradition. Slept in the airports. trying to connect with their families. But if you look at also the support system, the social protection, so you have a situation whereby even if you are an orphan, there is social protection to make sure you grow up normally. If you are a single parent, there is social protection. If you are poor, there are even allowances for the poor to make sure that nobody is too desperate, forget who they are. So when you look at the problem of monetization, the problem of young people, like this example, 5 million by a child, it's because we do not have proper social protections for our communities. So I think for me, these are some of the things we should be looking at, and they go with the broader governance questions in the country.
Good. Honorable Ojara, your own perspective, where are we at now from your standpoint? How big are the dilemmas?
Well, it's a serious thing, and just before I go into digging deeper into, just in line with the question you gave, let me very briefly touch on what Dr. Sarah said, and also the message sent to you by the other gentleman. The gentleman insinuated that there are a lot more pressing issues that should be talked about than this. There are definitely issues, but you see, if you have a problem, you don't then give up and say, I already have a problem, so there should be another problem. I don't think that is the correct mindset. I think we should be firm and talk about the things that, and you see why this needs to be talked about is that unlike other problems, because there are many problems, this is a problem that the moment it gets its root deep down, you will not uproot it. We may be able to deal with poverty depending on the approaches we are going to use, depending on solutions that we are going to provide, depending on opportunities that the country has got. Poverty is not permanent, it's temporary, depending on how best you are going to deal with the situation. But a culture takes time to build. A culture doesn't take long to be destroyed. So we need to talk about this. And I hope the gentleman who sent this message will begin to understand that if we believe in the society we belong to, this society called Uganda, because every society must have the things they believe in, their value systems, because that is our identity. Now, whoever wants to destroy your identity is definitely trying to make you cease to exist. So we need to look at it from that angle. Dr. Sarah said, seems our belief values are, like probably weaker, and I don't think so. Because I don't think there is any culture which is superior or inferior. Ours is superior to us, theirs is superior to them. I don't think anybody would be right to say we have a weak culture. At individual level or at family level, at that respective setting, people may have varying level of commitment on how they want to exercise or demonstrate or commit themselves to their culture. That doesn't mean ours is weak. Now, Ladit Charles, I have been reading recently, and when you look at what is happening in the Western world, there are very disturbing development. To some of us who believe in who we are and what our society believes in. I was reading recently where a court, I think in Germany or somewhere, I read, I'm not sure how true it is because the sounds are very untrue. Where a court ruled that actually a brother and a sister can marry.
That was in US. I think I read that story.
I read that. And then in another country where people can have sexual intercourse with animals is okay. Court ruling. And then what is going on now? Now, that should send a very strong message to those of us who do not believe in that. Because just as Dr. Sarah put it, today we're in a global village. What happens in another part of the world takes a shorter time to reach one end. And so if we care about who we are, what we believe in, what we preach, we should then be seen to be doing exactly that. So we should speak about it. And also, because there are people who even fear talking about this, especially those in the civil society. They fear talking about this. Even some lawyers fear talking about it.
I am two of those.
I said some. I use some lawyers. I said some. You are Dr. Sarah.
Dr. Sarah.
No, for you, I know you, and you started as a parent, and you made it clear. So you are not some. But there are people who fear talking about this because people have turned life into projects.
True.
We now, even how we educate people, we want it to be looked at, from a project perspective. Even now when we want to go to the villages and try to educate people, mobilize people, and our society has been terribly tampered with. So we need to talk about it. And family, talk about it. Now, and you see the kind of fear that is put. Honorable Minister, I'm not sure whether you have been confronted with this. You travel a lot. For some of you who traveled, and some of us who once in a while travel, in most of these meetings you have with, high-profile people, the discussion, you wonder why that becomes the first line of discussion. Recently, actually last year, around September last year, we went to Canada, a few of us. And so after, several meetings and all that, we went to meet some leaders in the, high-profile leaders in Canada, in their capital city. And then the people who were coordinating this meeting, because we had to sit and plan, and we wanted to know the people who were meeting, their profile and all that. And then one gentleman said, you know, one thing you need to be very sensitive about here, it's very tricky to address somebody as he or she. So you need to find, and I said, so which other term do you want me to use? Because the society I come from, a he is a he and a she is a she. So you want me to, and said, you know, for now, and I said, you see, well, then if I'm not sure how I am going to address you, then I'm not sure I can meet you. Because I'm not meeting a ghost, I'm meeting a human being. Now, even meeting people, you are not sure whom you are addressing. Appears to be a man, and so you should struggle. It's torturous psychologically, because so these are things that we have to deal with. So whatever is going on, there are people who say, you see, let us not talk about this thing. You are not talking about it, but it's turning cancerous. It's penetrating every level of the society. By the time you'll start talking about it, as a parent, Dr. Sarah will just say, I'm going to the village. I don't want to see you people. Because it will be unbearable. If you are brought up well, according to your societal setting, and then something new is coming, it's an attack on our norms and principles and practices, and these are things that we have to be firm. And so for me, we need to be tough on some of these things.
And do what?
Well,
Tough and do what?
Tough and, well, starts by firmly speaking about it and stating our position clearly. I am very happy. A few times I have heard the president respond to some of these questions, and I think that should be the response. And every leader, every responsible leader who takes this society as their own should keep on that stand and say, look, you know, this is our way of life, and therefore you should respect our way of life. If it's okay with you, stay with it. But the moment you begin to now make it a project so that our children begin to think like you and behave like you, teach your child to do it that way, and we teach our children to do the things we, you know. But if you, so this is a very, very, you know, for some of us who are brought up in a society where, you know, it's unbearable, and we need to speak against it, and everybody needs to firmly condemn it. Okay. So that's my position.
Okay, then there are follow-up questions that I wanted to ask following what you have just said, because I believe that being firm, speaking about it, is contextual to our circumstances. For example, if a reverend says, yes, let's preach firmly against it, I would hear so. If a journalist said, let's take action against it, my thinking would be that they're going to write about it, they're going to speak about it. But as a lawmaker, when you say firmly speak about it, take up your responsibility. As the president, as ministers, you are clothed with the responsibility to put in place policies, to put in place laws, to enforce. So I would want to see that. The moment I don't see that, then I think that you are just in rhetoric.
I am with you on that.
Now, hold the fire. Hold the fire. I want us to go for a break. When we come back, that's where we should start from.
Thank you.
How do we handle the dilemma? How do we handle this big problem? Let's go for a break right now.
Deeper conversation.
How many teachers in Uganda
did you consult? But there's a mistake we are making.
Which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
We went to this school, we ran it to Western, we ran it to Northern, we ran, then you come.
Isn't that an achievement?
Objective and non-partisan.
Honorable Minister, there were a number of points. I want to start with you.
Straight from the hearts of open-minded men and women.
Money tends to move faster at night. So
when people are not counting,
Don't take it for granted.
Candid and authentic.
Because Uganda is not Thailand.
That's not correct, and we should stop that kind of mentality. So what I'm saying
That's
is,
a trick question. Don't answer.
I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into that.
Tell him you speak low.
I think that's where we are beginning to have a problem.
I think what is going to kill the parish model are all the misconceptions on how it's supposed to run.
I know that the Prime Minister is listening.
Behind the headlines.
Charles, let us agree. We liberalized the economy.
We are several nations put it together.
Why don't you appreciate that?
What if it fails?
I'm happy
And
to
he's a good lawyer because Amin is not in power.
The parish development committee is functional. It is there. That there is a parish chief, that the beneficiary is doing.
So we look at expenditure. We don't look at revenue. And that is the challenge we are giving them from Minister of Finance.
Your fountain of new knowledge, flowing into the mass body of knowledge.
First get the knowledge of Bukedia, how they want to be modernized.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
You return money to the treasury, which is meant for the people.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Send transport to the wrong person. Here's how to reverse it with MTN mobile money. Dial *165#. Select My Account. Select Initiate Reversal. You will see your last 3 transactions. Select the transaction you want to reverse. Enter your mobile money PIN and you'll get an SMS confirmation that the transaction has been blocked from being withdrawn. And that's it. Please note, only transactions that haven't been withdrawn can be reversed.
So this receipt, okay, plus this one equals
Keeping up with your transaction history the old way.
1,000. Okay, I got this. I don't. Okay, maybe if I can just.
Keeping up with your transaction history with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to keep an eye on your transaction history. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
It's easy.
It's true what people say, that when I wash and you wash your hands with soap, we'll have less infections as Ugandans. After all, it's hands that handle money. It's hands that feed us. Hands that prepare soil for farming. Hands that we use to learn. And hands that we use for fun.
When I wash and you wash hands with soap, it means clean hands for all. This is a message from the National Hand Washing Secretariat.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines here on UBC Nile Avenue in Kampala. My name is Charles Odongso, and we are looking at the debate around the LGBTQ question, the issue of where are we going? Where is the world going? The anger, the frustration, the discussions, you know, around this country. In schools, it is becoming an issue. And here we are discussing the LGBT question. And in the studio, we have the Honorable Minister of State for ICT and National Guidance, Honorable Geoffrey Kabyanga. We have Council Sarah Birete. We have Honorable Jara Mapenduzi and Reverend Canon Awodi John from the Diocese of Kampala, Church of Uganda. And we expected to have Imam Kasozi on the show. We have no word from him, but he had confirmed he was coming on the show. Mr. Imam, if you're watching the program, just participate by sending us a message. On that note, I want to say that we are streaming live via YouTube. That's UBC Television on YouTube. There is also the hashtag on Twitter, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines. You can join us through that or send your comment or question, but you can also send your comment or question on telephone number 0709 602592. I will repeat that, 0709 602592. Someone called my friend Job. Job sent a message and I'm watching you guys, and he says homosexuality is against African culture. This is a Western thing, and we must all speak with one collective voice and reject it in totality. That is, that's my friend Richard Job Matua. But Matua, you need to also qualify the fact that not everybody, even in the Western world, approves of it. Of course, there are those who don't mind it, but not everybody. Before we went into the break, was it Honorable or Honorable Kabyanga who wanted to respond on the issue of where is your role? What exactly are you doing as far as your role is concerned? You talked about government putting in place a bill, but it died. What did government do after that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, as we talk now, we have laws, just as Sarah has
but none is being enforced now.
But obviously there are gaps. That's why we introduce now the Bahati bill, so that to close up all those gaps. But it collapsed because of on technical grounds, and then procedural grounds, and not that people didn't like it or not. I think at an opportune time it can be reintroduced to Parliament, and the right procedure is followed. But and it will close some of the gaps which Sarah has brought up, issues of enforcement and the like. Because once it is signed into law, then we can come up with other guidelines and the like. But one thing, Charles, because you have said that journalists can write about it, reverends can preach about it. I think government, as political leaders and civil society leaders, everybody can talk about it. Because even you journalists report what people have spoken. If you read the newspaper, it is about what others have spoken. If you listen to news, it is about what others have spoken. So if we can all take it up as a responsibility to talk And we politicians have so many avenues we can use to send the message. I think, as Honorable Mapinduzi has said, we need to have a collective responsibility to fight this vice. We talk about it and without fear or favor. That's the most important thing, because the president has been firm. He has firmly talked against homosexuality, and that's the message we need. We really need to carry. And someone who said, I think Honorable Mapinduzi answered him well. Someone who said, is it the most important thing to talk about? That is the biggest problem with Ugandans. For them, if you ask which one is the most important thing, he will tell you, you know, poverty, you know, governance, you know, all the. There is no issue on this world. Any issue is very important. And as a leader, you cannot concentrate on only one thing. That's why I told you, even when it has not yet spread to that magnitude, it is starting. And if we are not careful, in the next decade, it might be a very big problem, which will even overshadow other problems. Remember, in 2013, I was reading some of the old newspapers. I found that in 2013, one of the schools, I'm not going to mention names here for purposes of schools not being victimized. One of the schools expelled 20 students, a school in Jinja. I was reading it. They expelled 20 students who they suspected to be lesbians, and eventually they had evidence to have them suspended. In 2016, one of the primary schools in Kampala here apologized to the whole nation because they found them, they found that they were making lesbian, gays literature accessible to primary school students, and they came out and apologized. So that's how problems begin, vices begin, and then it starts growing and growing. And just as Sarah said, now during COVID, it even became worse now, because everybody was, everything was virtual. And you would leave your children with smartphones, with tablets, with computers to study. And after that, they would go to other sites and read about that. Also, those promoters of homosexuality use that just now to access some of those students. But now we need to come out strongly and say, please, this one should stop. And probably as a Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, it touches us squarely. Because as national guidance, we are supposed to promote values. As ICT, we are supposed to regulate all ICT issues, digital transformation and the like. And just as Sarah has said, in some of the countries, you cannot access certain certain platforms. Even if you want, you will not. They have system approach to block anybody to access it or any information to come. That's where we are going now as a ministry, to see whether we can put in place systems which can block information that is not is related to such vices. But we need to talk and talk and talk. Political leaders should talk. Religious leaders should talk. Civil society organizations which are anti that should also talk, because there are some which you promote it, but we should all talk, and talking should not be left to only political leaders, because eventually it may spread and cause other problems. Okay. And obviously poverty is one of the issue. You know, Sarah, I think, was talking about structural issues. Yes, there are structural issues which we also need to look at seriously now as the political leaders and come up with the laws to regulate some of these things. For instance, you can see during our time, for us when we went to school, we were all level. You would go to school, and Charles and myself, whether Charles is from a rich family or poor family, you are all at the same level. You don't go to the dining to eat. But now, you reach a school, there are some schools which I can't mention. You reach a school, you meet even a child doesn't want to go to the dining to eat what? Food. There is a canteen somewhere. And one kid has gone with about 3 million shillings, pocket money, given by the parents. Another one, as Sarah says, the parent is even struggling to get transport to take the child to school. So that's how now all those dynamics will make a child look for ways of getting money so that he can also go to the canteen to what? To eat. And then that's when now all those opportunities come in to fill the gap. So those structural issues are there, which we should also look at as leaders, and probably enact laws that can level everybody.
Enacting laws goes, you know, to be effective, laws have to be enforced, which is why I want to bring in the viewers out there joining us by different through different channels. I will start with Mr. Opargiu Innocent, who says, Charles, I'm watching you from Arua. My question goes to the minister. We have learned that the LGBTQ have got a base in Tinda, Kampala, and being guarded by government police. Can the minister respond to this concern? Honorable Minister, you will find time to respond to that. If it is true, Ntinda, that's what they are saying. I don't know. Then someone says, today, Charles, you have put up a very important program about homosexuality in schools. The person has not put their name, but Mr. or Miss or Mrs. Sir or Miss Madam, we have discussed so many important issues even before this. So, but the person says, I've been thinking it would not even be allowed to be discussed. But the truth is, since 2013, it was already there now, so it is too late, because I have been a victim in some Western school in Barara. So please, just talk about it, but the funding and force behind the practitioners, if homosexuals are untouchable, and nowhere the law has been, this is not very clear. Government is out of our control or something. I wanted to read it in its entirety, but the construction is not very proper. From Chotera, Wilson Ham says, my question is, what is the origin of this thing, and what is behind it? Who is behind it? What is the aim of this somebody? To abuse or to create social evil? With this, I know we can handle this monster. Someone says, it is a big issue to solve because you cannot go to police for help, because in police you find they are also there. This is what someone without a name is saying. Someone says, greetings, Ladit Charles. Is homosexuality new in Uganda? Absolutely not. In 1992, while I was a student at, the person says, the person says, while I was a student in Jinja College, we had a population of about 200. The head teacher then could not dismiss some of the people, because these were all children of the affluent then in our society. The question is it the biggest evil in Uganda? I never became a homosexual because of my close proximity with them, one of whom is a prominent, this person is called James in Kampala. James, write properly because you have gone to school. And I need to read you well. Then this one called Ogwang Mike Stephen. He says, if the Western world thinks it is good, then why export it to Africans? And to the Africans, following from Mugisha, who petitioned sex minority in Uganda, why would you go for something that leaves you with a lifetime suffering? God is wise, and that is why God created a man and a woman as opposite gender. It is a very long one. There is another one here. Ladies, gentlemen, and others is what those groups would like you to address. Then Peter from Serere says, Parliament should immediately convene to amend the law to make it riskier and more expensive for anyone to promote LGBT in Uganda. This is from Serere. Let me now pick just randomly 3. There are too many messages. This person says, this is an amazing show, Charles. I want to thank the Honorable Minister for reminding us that most animals have sex majorly to reproduce. Secondly, I would like to emphasize that as long as we are still poor, the Western world will never fail to manipulate us. Almost everything happening today is influenced by the Western world, including religion, abortion, divorce, and others like LGBTQ. The good thing with religion is that it brought a few acceptable moral standards. Otherwise, people rarely dig deep into it, especially now that everyone is emerging as a pastor. In conclusion, it is good that even the African Traditional Society never accepted this. Emmanuel Chero from Moroto Town, he says this devil is destroying the boy child. Emmanuel, your question is too long. I can't read all of it. I will end it there. Then this one is also too long. He says, first of all, this conversation is long overdue. For a long time, we have had this problem eating up our country from the ground. We even have some of them on social media, and they are highly followed. Now you're going to make us start looking at who are highly followed. Dennis Okwir says, Charles, we need not to mince words as a country when debating LGBTQ. We should reject it with tough measures and make it risky for those who want to promote it. Apoyo, Dennis Okwir. Apoyo Bene Dennis, my God, this too many messages, just too many. Let me now say, we now need to stop here with the one of Anthony Rook. Anthony says, good evening, Charles, and all the panel members. I'm really overwhelmed by this practice that I think the Western world will also term that it's a good method of family planning or population control. My advice to everybody is to criminalize the practice to ensure that once one is a culprit, he be punished. Anthony, some of the words you have written I cannot use on air. It is unprofessional, and I will not read some of them. But thank you for the message that you have sent, and but thank you so much. I will see if I can read others as the discussion goes on, but in the subsequent minutes of the discussion. Let me first bring back the discussion to Honorable and Reverend, and then Sarah. Honorable, you had wanted to respond on the question of the challenge of the role that duty bearers are supposed to play in their respective corners.
Dr. Sarah put it quite clearly, especially in as far as the enforcement of the laws are concerned. There are clear provisions that criminalizes homosexuality or whatever name it is given. The Constitution is clear, the penal code is clear, but the gaps that Dr. Sarah talked about, and sometimes how you get defeated in, making sure that you pursue the processes. So as Parliament, just as the Honorable Minister said, actually there is already an ongoing discussion. Parliament gave directive to Ministry of Education to investigate some of these issues. And a few days ago I read, I think the First Lady, the Minister of Education, took a step with her ministry and instituted a team, to investigate this. I think they are taking action. And so every structure of government should be seen to be doing what they have to do in making sure that we fight these fights. So coming back to Parliament, soon, Lady Charles, you'll be hearing that very bill being reintroduced soon, and I can tell you that. And there are hundreds of members of Parliament, and I'm saying hundreds, because all of us carry the same belief that we are a God-fearing country, and we should make this country keep the practices and the things that has brought us this far. So if you are going to bring something that is different, we should be able to resist. And we do it lawfully, legally. So it starts with us and the different, key players, and Dr. Sarah, a strong lawyer, and the moment all of us are united, then the fight gets better. So we will do our part as Parliament, and the other law enforcement agencies and all that also have to do that. It's somebody texts and said, even the police. I think again, sometimes we water down our own efforts, because if you are telling people that even the police, in other words, you are trying to create an impression that when you have problem, nobody can help you. I think that's not correct. Such kind of mindset needs to be, we should be able to get back to such kind of thinking and say, no, if there are individuals within the police force who may have their own way of doing things, such people should also be confronted legally. Otherwise, the fight will defeat us if we fear that when I go to the church, maybe there are church leaders who are going to, there could be individuals, and such individuals should be identified, and we should speak against it, Because it's proven that in the African context, in our context, when people stand up to talk against certain practices that are not acceptable, the society listens. So let us speak about this. Let's speak against it, just like the Honorable Minister put it. Maybe just to conclude, Daddy Charles. You see, when you look at the schools, and I like the way the Honorable Minister put it, when you look at some of the schools that are being talked about, these are schools that produce very prominent people, highly cultured people. So the problem is actually not the schools. The problem is the infiltration that is coming in. So if you are going to look at Budo, you are going to look at, you are missing the point. Maybe a parent bravely talked about it, but there could be hundreds of schools that are not being talked about. So if you are looking at these few schools that have been mentioned, look at the school where near to you. Don't just talk about Budo, because the problem is not just here. The problem is, so we should look at this at every level, but also begin to reflect, what kind of society are we right now? What are the things that we need to, and you know, it's disturbing how much our values and, you know, norms and practices have been watered down. I go a lot to the community. Leave alone this vice. When you go to the community, even our way of life, where people would go and do communal work, where people want to, that sense of ownership, that sense of belonging, that sense of participation is no more. You want to talk to people in the villages, they want to be facilitated, to be told.
Transport fund.
Honestly.
But that's the culture of the leaders have built.
Not only the leaders,
but
actually.
Honorable, on that one, even MPs, when you're supposed to consult people,
you see,
they have to give you
Even
transport allowance.
Now I have to confront the two of you.
Confront the public.
No. First I have to deal with you.
Okay, you deal with
first
us.
I have to deal. You see,
you first deal with us.
You see, Charles.
Yes.
The same way you are getting back to me is the same way you want to silence me. We get defeated. We fail to find a solution to it. Let me tell you, I go to community meetings and I don't pay people money.
No, for you, you may not.
Yes.
But you know what your colleagues do.
No. You see, so
But you know what
don't use my colleagues to judge me. Don't you?
No. Honorable, we are not saying you. We are saying
it is not even
it is for every political leader now.
No, I'm also
there are so many. In fact, there are so many good ideas that die in our minds because we fear. If you want to invite, especially policy makers, the policy makers, the political leaders, they will need transport. And many people are now complaining their ideas die in their minds.
Can I put it this way? No, before that, sorry, Reverend Father.
I wish he could come in.
Yes,
because he's now the habitat.
I would love to.
He's now the habitat. They go between now.
No, just one, so that when he comes in, he's able to broadly handle that. You know, Charles, let me tell you this. We need to start thinking differently. Because when we think...
I'm happy you're saying that.
No, let me bring
And your colleagues are watching
no,
you.
No. Let me bring...
That message is for them.
Let me bring the point. You see, when you see some leaders behaving in a certain way, or trying to bribe people and trying to use money and all that, don't just look at that individual leader. There is something much bigger than that. Look at how the society is getting eroded.
I agree with you.
Yes. So it's not just... And the moment...
And okay, when you say that, be like a doctor. Diagnose, which you have done, we wish you have done well. Then state for us the solution. Prescribe the medicine.
Well, some of us are like, I am very radical in my approaches. I have recently had a discussion with some of my colleagues, and I said, you know, if Let me not put it the other way, the way I put it to them. But there is so much in this country that needs to be undone. There is so much in this country. Starting with what you have just talked about.
Our political leaders.
Our political leaders. Our
corruption,
system, the society.
the degeneration.
There is so much.
Bribery.
You know, in the discussion I had with my colleagues.
The vote buying.
I said almost half of there are so many people in this country that should not be walking on street. They should actually be in jail.
Thank you very much. Let us now bring the Reverend.
What I wanted to bring out here about this matter is this. We're talking about...
He was talking about the moral degeneration.
Yes.
Yes.
The Bible tells us in Proverbs 18:21, train a child in the way he should grow. When he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, let me bring it into context. When I was going through primary education, by P2, you are supposed to have gone through Acts of the Apostles in the Bible in your vernacular. And during those days, the head teacher plus the teachers who were influencing the learners had a particular code of conduct that was expected of them, and they will not go against that. And so at the end of it all, you will find that the teachers in school, plus the administration of the school, the church, the local leadership, and the government spoke one language. And they stood on the same ground. But the unfortunate thing that is happening in our society now is you find the church is talking one voice and is trying to emphasize the issue of morals. There is another aspect of the legal or the human rights. And at the end of it all, you are speaking to this one kid. And you want this kid to know one thing. At the end of it all, you end up confusing the child. And so if we are going to address some of these evils, including corruption, including the LGBTQ that we're talking about, and all the societal evils, I think we need to have one voice. We need to come up with one stand, so that at the end of it all, when we are talking to a child, what you have done is wrong, it is wrong. And everyone must stand by that. That's one thing. The second thing I want to bring out is, in the submissions from the viewers and so forth, there is the element of poverty which seems to be contributing to what we are going through now. Are we poorer now than what we were before? Because to me, when I look at what is happening around, I must believe that we are better off than what we were before. And if at that time when we were poorer, the value systems were strong, I don't agree to whatever excuses about poverty and this is forcing that. It is. I don't think that is the right thing to stand on. I do believe that if we instill the right values, we'll be able to address these vices that we are talking about. And at the end of it all, we'll be able to weed out this from our society. Yes, it has infiltrated, but the issue is we also have the capacity, if we use all the avenues, including the parents, instilling the right values, the teachers in schools standing together with one voice, the church and religious leaders standing with one voice, and as a unity, we will be able to weed out this evil. And for your information, as we talk about the Western world bringing this out, I must inform us that, for example, in America, the Anglican Church in America are actually separated, because there are those who do not buy to that issue of homosexuality or lesbianism or whatever it is. And that's why the GAFCON fellowship or setup came up to be able to stand worldwide with a church that does not buy to this LGBT agenda. And this is not just here in Africa, but it is worldwide. And the church in North Africa, or rather North America, came up strongly about this. And so we're not the only one fighting against this evil. There are many others who are standing with us. True. I know that through the civil society organizations, and I happen to come out of that kind of background, you'll find if you have to be supported on some of your projects, there is a policy they ask about. What is your policy on LGBTQ? And if your policy is against LGBTQ, you are not going to get any support. I know of organizations who have been who have failed to raise support because of their stand and policy on LGBTQ. But I must say this, just as the Church of Uganda came out very, very clearly to say that we are not going to accept your monies as long as it is coming from this source, we have for over 10 years managed to move on without support from such kind of people. And so I must say it is possible if we take our stand and we take a united stand. Thank you.
Councillor Sarah, the question of how to deal with it, how do we handle it? Is money a factor? Reverend says that must not, is poverty, money a factor?
No.
Reverend is strongly arguing that that can never be an excuse enough to say that we are weak, we can't beat this.
You know, Charles, there are some things we need to confront as a country and deal with them. Reverend Cannon, yeah, when we were growing up, my generation and people older, this country had organized systems of production. Let me use that as an example.
Yeah, true.
So you would, my early years in primary, you meet lorries of grow more coffee, grow more cotton, produce forex, whatever, you know, and our families, which we might think were poor, were not. Almost every parent could rely on agriculture to take care of their families, which is not possible today. You would have people taking coffee to a cooperative movement, taking their children to school. They were not poor. At one time when my father fell sick, he would sell one cow and send all the children to school. Today a cow cannot even send a child. It is not enough. So the economies of the day have put, you know, income inequalities that you might think don't exist. So if by that time we started, and we are not few in a family, one cow would send all of us to school. Today a cow cannot cover fees for a child, one. You need to sell 3, 4. Are we richer? Are we poor? Poorer? Who is richer? Who is poor? And I like to look at an ordinary citizen, not the cosmetic richness that you see in Kampala. So if a farmer who you would sell 1 cow and cover all his needs now needs to sell 5 cows, are we rich or poor? In terms of value, what the ordinary citizen is doing has no monetary value. The value has gone down. If you look at the, you know, for example, look at our exports as a country, and we are talking of values. So if we used to know that coffee brings in this money, today it is gold, which is not ours as a country. But today the highest exchange earned is gold, whether it is smuggled, whether it is got from where, even nobody has explained that. So do we have values? Where does it come from? Gold has overtaken coffee. It is not gold of Ugandans. Where does it come from? Do we pay taxes? Do we get it from legal means? So we have an economy of gamblers. In Uganda, you can call it, you know, like Kashenyangu in our local language. We gather this, tomorrow you are talking this. There is no systematic way of saying this is our economy, this is the system. Everybody is gambling every day. So if your highest exchange earner is not something you produce as a country, and the tax systems cannot even show where you got it from and how much tax you pay to the owners of that coffee, do we have values? At the political leadership, no. I know the churches are firm, and I'm not talking about the church. I'm a Christian. But at the political leadership, we have zero values. We were talking about money and the culture. I mean, can the president go to visit any community without envelopes today? And who created that culture? He's the one. NRM and monetization of politics and vulgarization of values. You don't know that you are destroying society. For you, so long as you win an election, that is all you are focusing on. But we are now dealing with the consequences of that. So you are going to say, gay community has money. How about you? How are you using money? How? We have seen on several occasions members of parliament, and please honor Mama Pendus, this is not personal to you. Because some of us know what you stand for. But we must talk about leadership at all levels. Members of parliament need to be bribed to pass bills. Yet that's what they are paid to do every day. So what values are you talking about? And on what moral ground are you going to say gay community has money? He's using, how about you to corrupt people? How about you? And how are you going to prevent that? So this is the distortion that we are dealing with today. And we cannot sit at a moral high ground and pretend to address symptoms. Let's look at the status of our young children in this country. We faced, emerging out of lockdown, we had a threefold crisis of young people. One was teenage pregnancies. And I know that the church, again, and as a Christian, I called out to the church because I did not agree with your stand of trying to criminalize young people that were defiled during lockdown. If we have morals, where were these morals when these girls were being defiled? And how do you criminalize the victim standing on a moral high ground? Why didn't you prevent with your morals? And then you want them to miss a chance of education, to rehabilitate their lives because of morals. I opposed that, and I'm a born-again Christian. You come to the issue of depression. We have been seeing suicide cases going on in schools. 1, 2, 3, 4 reported. What is the mental status of these children? And what are we doing about that? The Ministry of Health released a report that 40 million Ugandans have mental issues. Even when you are seated with 2 or 3 people, you don't know whether they are one of the 14 million.
We are 5 here.
I don't know.
Not me.
We are 5, so.
This is the status of our country. Some might not even know. So let's note, that's why I said that there are structural issues that we must deal with as a country.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, there are so many questions that have come, and let me try it, because there are so many. Let me just try to bring in some 3, 4. Someone says our donors can threaten to withdraw aid from our country Let the Honorable throw more light on this Honorable Mapinduzi with the connection to the upcoming bill in Parliament, as he has referred to. And then people who, my good friends who send messages, I'm going to issue out a guidance to all of you who send messages and engage with us. If your message is more than a sentence, I'm not going to read it. Let's agree that is how we are going to start doing it, because the messages are too long and it becomes hard to read them. But Shadrach Dembe says some things disturb. This, he says, Europeans brought for us Christianity, which we welcomed wholeheartedly. The same Europeans are now telling us LGBT, which contradicts Christianity. Is this madness, or he does not finish the sentence? Then he says, we strongly need to say no to this vice. I can hear the frustration in your voice. Then Peter Kabagambe from Shema, he says, these people are just sick in the head. Let them practice their insanity on their own children. They have to leave our children alone. Otherwise, let them go back to where they belong. Period. And then another person here says, I am Joseph from Western Uganda. Some of these things, he says, like Nyege Nyege, that became public are some of the platforms through which government is spreading LGBT culture. Yet government supports their presence here in Uganda. Then the final one here, if there was ever a war that the poor South needed to fight with the rich North, this homosexuality issue is it. We must not surrender our souls. God will stand with us, the righteous. We are left with less than 10 minutes. There are too many questions. I want to thank you so much for the questions and comments. I'm going to request the Honorable Minister to respond to some of the questions that have just come up in a minute, and then we start doing the final round, and then the Minister will crown it all on going forward. How do we solve the problem?
Yeah, I think most of them were comments, but let me start with the one who talked about a place in Ndinda, and is being guarded by police. The best you can do for us, secretary, you can send the location to Charles Odongto, and then he passes it over to us.
You have endangered my life already.
Yes, because if I say passing it over to me, they
may fail to find you.
They may fear.
They may fear.
But we shall obviously ensure the whistleblower is protected.
Let them send to UBC.
Exactly.
And then we shall see how it reaches government.
Exactly. And then we go there and the one who said whether it's not too late to talk about homosexuality, it's never too late. We must talk, and talk seriously now, because I think we have been talking lightly about it, but now it's time to talk about it seriously. Someone was asking what was the motive of those people who are promoting it. Some of them money motives. Some people are making money out of it. Some organizations are making money out of it, and you meet even when they know it's not good, but because of money, they are promoting it, mainly in Africa here. But in the Western world, they seem to think now it is some orientation.
Is that why it is not very common in the Arab world?
Oh yes, in the Arab world. You know, the Arab world has very strict laws. For them, even adultery, they just stone you publicly. In some countries, if you commit adultery, they just stone you publicly. And the homosexuality is even a bigger crime. They will just kill you. Behead you, yes.
You saw what happened with the World Cup. They said, no, you're not even going to show us your flags.
Yes. Because for them, they have a strict, very, first of all, their laws are attached to their religion. You know, because it's Sharia law. In most of these Asian, mainly the Muslim countries, it is Sharia law. And you know, Sharia law is a law which originates from the Quran. But you know, for us to have some sort of secular law, we still believe in religion, and then we have other laws. But those ones are very, 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 very strict. And for Parliament to fear to bring the law, because I will leave it to Honorable Mapinduzi, but sincerely, if you say you are going to give us money as a condition that we should promote homosexuality, we shall refuse it sincerely, because I don't think that will be good for our country. And then let me also comment slightly on Sarah's submission. Yes, Sarah, I respect all your views, and I respect your position on issues of morals. And it's true, there's a lot of corruption, a lot of bribery, which is bad. But that doesn't mean we should, because we have these immoral acts, we should support another immoral what? act. We have enough.
No,
let us fight corruption, because it is eating up our fabric, and that's true. Nobody can because even recently the president, he called them pigs. Some of those people who sell jobs. And bribery is too much, yes, but that one we should fight. But this one which is coming now, the other one I think has been in for long now, it is entrenched. But this one now which is coming, this one of homosexuality, we shouldn't allow it to reach the level of corruption. And therefore we should fight it. And that's why all of us, we should take it as a responsibility, our own role, our responsibility to fight it. Right away from the family level. And it's only at family level that it will be fought. Because I have told people, you know, in my village, people are telling me there are so many thieves. And they need police force everywhere. I told them we can't get enough police to guard the thieves. There are two ways you can fight these petty thieves of pigs and whatever. One, you assure every Sunday or every Friday you go with your children to the religious institution, either church or a mosque, or every Saturday. Because for us, we grew up from Sunday school. And from Sunday school, from the age of 3, they were teaching you how to fear God, what not to steal and everything. Then the second thing, when you have brought up your children in a godly way, you should take that child to school. Because we who are here, nobody can steal a pig or a goat. First of all, you are born again. 2, you have gone to school. And you are not at the level of stealing a goat. But So long as you go to church, you leave your children home, they will automatically be thieves. So long as you don't take your children to school, they will automatically be what? Thieves. Even this homosexuality vice, let us start from the family level to see that we really take our children to church. We take them to mosques so that they grew up upright. Even when you go to school, any school, and you find there that vice, your conscience will always tell you that it is bad. Okay. But we should fight it, just as we are fighting other vices. Okay. So here it's not an issue. Since there is bribery, we can't do, no, we shall fight. We shall fight all those vices collectively and holistically.
Honorable, I agree with you, and I was just demonstrating the need for a structural approach.
Yes, yes. And I agree with you.
What structural approach
even,
may be?
Even poverty, we should, for instance, fight poverty. That's some structural approach. We should see how, just as you have said, and it's true, one would sell a cow and pay what? School fees. Now, those are the things now we should, first of all, do families still have those cows? Do families still have enough coffee to sell? And then, what about the fee structures? Are they really...
because education has become commercialized.
Has become very commercialized. Okay. So all those things are issues which we need to handle.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Councillor Sarah, 1 minute. We need to be winding up. Way forward.
I think I will use the saying of Chinua, that when the mother cow is chewing, the young ones are watching. Society needs role models. Society needs leadership. Society needs guidance. These three things are missing in this country.
Honorable Mapenduzi.
In actually we say yat gitwenyo mapeo tuo. You can put it better.
That a tree, a grown-up tree cannot be, which is bent, cannot be straight.
Corrected.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure it is straight
from the beginning.
Right from the beginning. And that's why we need to talk about it now before it's too deep to uproot. The gentleman who asked whether Parliament would be, how do I put it? I wanted
would not fear losing, is it donor money if you go for the bill?
Whether Parliament would succumb, let me use it this way, whether Parliament would succumb to, you know, donor pressure as a condition to, if you want to know our position as Parliament, you need to start with what the leaders have repeatedly stated, the leadership of Parliament. I'm sure many of you have seen or have followed even on different news channels. The statements that have been made by the Speaker of Parliament and the Deputy Speaker of Parliament. Not just here in Uganda only, but internationally. In, you know, in bigger international meetings where speakers and our position is clear. And so I don't think we will be compromised into, you want to question me?
No, yes, maybe you can come in also on the minister. You know, people were saying they are blaming donors in the debate. And I would like to know, because Parliament usually every month you are passing a loan for government to borrow money. Have you ever come across a condition? Because the position of the president has been open on homosexuality. Has any donor ever told you that for me to give you money, you must promote the gay rights?
You see, Parliament does not borrow money.
No, you approve.
We
That's
approve.
why I'm asking. And you read the conditions.
Actually, you have answered yourself. Because the president, who is the head of the executive, has made his position clear. And so, we have never come across any money being tagged to whatever condition. That has never, I don't think it will even appear.
Because
Actually,
it does not exist.
no, well, but with civil society organizations.
Which one?
Well, let's not talk about that.
No, you don't think.
By the way, let me put it this way. Maybe you have not come across it.
Yeah,
But did
because
you
I've
hear,
never seen
did you hear what the religious leader said? He said he's coming from that background.
You have seen them.
I have.
Is coming from that background, but leave alone the civil society. Even he gave the example of the church, where the church has not received funding for several years because of their position. They said, well, if you are going to tack it to this, keep your money.
Yeah, I saw Orombi
That
doing
is it.
Yeah,
but I wanted to know for government, because I haven't seen it
No.
in civil society.
No.
Okay. Reverend?
Yes. If we're going to fight this evil and all the evils, I think there is need for us to begin from the family. How we bring up our children in a way that will impart the right values, so that at the end of it, or when they grow up, they will know that A is A, not B, not C, not D. It is that. Two, I also want to just correct any impression about somebody who talked of Christianity being brought from the West. I must say this: history tells me that actually the center of Christianity was in North Africa, on the soil of Africa, before it went to the West. What the West is importing, or rather exporting to us, is their machination. They have run away from the truth of the gospel. And so at the end of it all, we should not be intimidated. We should actually stand our ground and say, no, we cannot accept this. And if you want to promote whatever you want to promote, keep it to yourself and keep off, full stop.
Okay. Honorable, you had made your...
Yes, I would like to thank you, Charles, for bringing up this, and we should expand it. We should have more sessions.
True.
So that people can be able to ask. Yeah. To us, Asara, who have not come across such a condition, but if it ever comes, I can authoritatively say we shall say no to that grant, that loan, or whatever. And that's why we are struggling as government to see how we can expand our economy, and then we start financing our budget, so that we get rid of those conditionalities and dependence. And for people outside there, Uganda is a God-fearing country. We can't be pulled into supporting homosexuality. That one we shall not allow.
Thank you very much. Someone says, Charles, today's topic, NEDA. That's what the person is saying.
Do we call that a coward, or?
No, it's his opinion.
It's their view.
Yes.
It's their view. Like I said, there is a diversity of thought, and viewers have all their issues. When you discuss corruption, people will say, no, we are tired. When you discuss crime, people will say, you are discussing something which has gone out of hand. When you discuss economy, people will say, that one does not affect us. Then when you discuss, the deaths on the road, people will say that is for people who travel. So anything people will have to to criticize. But I believe that anything that is in the public space is worth discussing as long as we are not committing any crime. It's important that we discuss these issues. They affect our society, and like the topic is talking about the fabric of our society, there is no society that can stand minus its values.
True.
Nowhere in the world, whether it is in the Arab world, in Europe, in America, in Africa, every society has its values. Perhaps what we are missing in a country like Uganda and in many African countries is maybe identifying that value and the moral standing that they have. But otherwise, every society has it. The only challenge for us is to do the needful. Thank you very much, Honorable Kabyanga. Thank you very much, Reverend. Thank you, Honorable Martin Ojara and Council Sarah Birete. Thanks a lot from the thanks to the producer Etiang and the team and the technical team. Thank you very much. And to you all out there who participate in the discussion, and especially those who share with us your messages and comments and questions, thank you all very much. Until next week, God bless you all.
It's true what people say, that when I wash and you wash your hands with soap, we'll have less infections as Ugandans. After all, it's hands that handle money. It's hands that feed us. Hands that prepare soil for farming. Hands that we use to learn. And hands that we use for fun.
When I wash and you wash hands with soap, it means clean hands for all. This is a message from the National Hand Washing Secretariat. Coming soon on UBC.
Uganda is no doubt beautiful, beautiful beyond measure. A land of sunshine, breathtaking stunning sights, and the amazing lush greenery. My name is Drago. Join me as I set sail to show you the pearl of Africa that we know and love. A chance to get out. A chance to appreciate the best luxurious holiday destinations. We often dream about traveling overseas, but many forget that exploring their own country can be just as thrilling. Be surprised, amazed, pushed to the limits of my fears.
Behind anonymity and made decisions on things like COVID-related lockdowns, travel restrictions, and anti-COVID jab mandates. Clearly, they weren't worried about having to answer to the public. Cummings talked about this systemic undermining of democracy with all the nonchalance of ordering up a pizza. And around the same time that Cummings was musing about the deep state, a whistleblower came forward in the British press to disclose that the British Army spied on COVID lockdown critics, including high-profile journalists.
Work I was doing should never have happened. This domestic monitoring of citizens seemed not to be driven by a desire to address the public's concerns, but to identify levers for compliance with controversial government policies.
The fact that this political monitoring happened under the guise of countering misinformation highlights how, without serious safeguards, the concept of wrong information is open to abuse